There's a moment when nothing is wrong, yet something feels heavy, not sharp, not loud, just a low pressure in the chest. Like standing in a room where the air has already been used, you pause for no clear reason. Your body slows before your mind does. You feel tired, but not from effort. More like from holding something that was never placed down. It shows up in small ways. A delayed reply. A sigh that surprises you. A sudden wish to be alone, followed by a strange guilt for wanting it. Most people would say this is stress, or sensitivity, or caring too much, but that's not the part most people notice. What they notice is how steady you seem, how calm you look when others unravel, how available you are when emotions spill into the room. They see the listening, the patience, the way you absorb without interrupting. They don't see what happens afterward. They don't see how quiet your inner world becomes once the noise fades. How empty it can feel when no one is pulling on you anymore. There is a subtle loneliness there, not the kind that comes from being unseen, the kind that comes from being needed too often. But even that isn't the core of it. There's something quieter happening underneath. It shows up as a pattern, a rhythm you don't remember choosing. You move toward people who are struggling. Not dramatically, almost gently. You lean in when others lean away. You stay present when things grow uncomfortable. You wait when someone pulls back. It feels natural, like breathing in a certain direction. At first, it even feels grounding. There's a sense of purpose in it, a sense of place, but slowly something shifts. You begin to feel a distance from yourself, not all at once, in fragments, moments where you can't quite tell what you need, or whether you're tired, or sad, or just done. You tell yourself it will pass, that this is just what depth feels like. And maybe that's true, partially. But that's not the part most people notice. What they notice is how composed you remain, how you rarely ask for much, how you don't make your weight visible. You become someone others feel safe leaning on. And somehow that safety becomes expected. There's a strange pressure in that, a quiet contract no one ever speaks out loud. You start to sense it in conversations. The slight pause when you don't respond immediately, the subtle disappointment when you don't hold space the way you used to. You feel it when you set a boundary and it lands heavier than intended, as if something essential has been withdrawn. And that's where the confusion deepens. Because you never meant to become essential. You were just present, you were just paying attention. But attention has weight. And over time, that weight accumulates. There's something else happening too, something easy to miss because it doesn't feel painful at first. You begin to measure your worth by your emotional usefulness. Not consciously, not in words. It's more like a background hum, a quiet sense of being needed that steadies you. When someone opens up, you feel grounded. When someone pulls away, you feel unmoored. Your internal balance starts to depend on other people's emotional states. That's where it starts to change. You might notice rest doesn't quite restore you anymore. Silence doesn't feel as nourishing as it used to, because the silence brings questions. And the questions don't have easy answers. Who are you when no one needs you? What do you feel when you're not holding something together? Those questions linger longer than expected, so you stay busy. Emotionally busy, you stay attuned, available, responsive. It feels safer than sitting with the emptiness. But there's a cost, a slow one. You begin to disappear in small ways. Your preferences blur. Your reactions soften until they almost vanish. You adapt so well that even you forget what you're adapting from. And still, that's not the insight yet, not fully. Because none of this feels wrong while it's happening. It feels like care, like depth, like being human in a world that isn't always gentle. That's why it's so hard to see. It doesn't look like a wound, it looks like a strength. And strengths are rarely questioned. But halfway through this pattern, something begins to ache, not sharply, more like a dull recognition, a sense that you're always slightly behind yourself, arriving late to your own inner life. You start to notice how quickly you understand others and how slowly you understand yourself. That imbalance grows quietly. And here is where the realization begins to surface, not as advice, not as a solution, just as a noticing. The emotional pattern isn't about caring too much. It's about where care is directed. For a long time, your awareness has been turned outward, scanning, reading, adjusting. You learned early that this was how connections stayed intact, that safety lived in attunement, so you became very good at sensing what others needed before they asked. Very good at holding space without taking any. Over time, that skill hardened into a reflex. You didn't choose it, it chose you, and once it was there, it shaped everything quietly. You began to feel most stable when someone else was unstable, most grounded when you were needed. Not because you wanted control, but because it gave your sensitivity a place to land. Without that external anchor, the inner world felt too open, too undefined. So the pattern kept repeating. You stayed in emotional motion to avoid emotional stillness. That's the part that keeps you stuck, not the caring, not the depth. The avoidance of your own unheld space. It's subtle, almost invisible, because it doesn't feel like avoidance. It feels like responsibility, but responsibility can become a shield, a way to postpone meeting yourself without witnesses. When the attention finally turns inward, even briefly, there's discomfort. Not because something is wrong, but because something has been unattended for a long time. Feelings without names, need without language. They don't arrive neatly. They arrive as fatigue, as irritation without a target, as a quiet sadness that doesn't belong to any moment. This is often when people say you're burned out. But that's not precise enough. What's happening is a rebalancing that hasn't completed itself yet. Your inner world is asking for the same presence you've been giving away. And that request feels unfamiliar, even unsettling, because you were never taught how to stay with yourself without doing something for someone else. So you hesitate. You reach outward again. You listen again. You hold again. And the pattern continues, not because you're broken, but because this way of being once kept you safe. That's important to acknowledge. It protected you. It connected you. It gave meaning where there might have been chaos. But patterns that form in protection can later become constraints. Not suddenly, gradually. The shift doesn't come from stopping care or pulling away dramatically. It begins with a quieter awareness, noticing when you lean forward without being asked, noticing when you ignore a signal from your own body to stay present elsewhere. There's no judgment in that noticing, just information. And information, when held gently, begins to loosen things. You may find that stillness feels awkward at first, almost empty, but emptiness isn't absence, it's space. Space that hasn't yet been filled with your own attention. As the pattern softens, something else emerges, a different kind of grounding. One that doesn't depend on being needed. It doesn't arrive all at once, it flickers. Moments where you feel present without performing, moments where you don't rush to interpret or fix. They feel strange, but also relieving. The emotional weight shifts. You're still perceptive, still deep, still attuned, but the center of gravity moves slightly inward. And that changes everything quietly, not in how you show up for others, but in how you remain with yourself afterward. There's less depletion, less invisible strain. Not because life becomes easier, but because you're no longer carrying it alone inside. The pattern loosens not through effort, but through recognition, through the simple act of seeing what's been happening beneath the surface all along. In that seeing, there is a kind of relief, not dramatic, not final, just a soft exhale, a sense that the stillness you once avoided might actually be where you belong too.